we were raised in Kapahulu, near Waikiki. We all went to Waikiki Elementary School until her and my sister and myself was fortunate enough to get into Kumena. We moved 3 times when we were growing up, all on the same street, within 2 blocks of each other. And I have memories of carrying boxes up and down the street when I was small. We lived under somebody's house in a basement when I was born, and then lived behind somebody's house later on when we were a little older, and then we lived in an attached apartment later on. My mom was a nurse, never made more than $30,000 a year in her life, and my dad was an air conditioning mechanic, and his big claim to fame was he worked at HIC, that was before it was the Blaisdell Center. So I got a chance to go meet the Harlem Globetrotters. It was a big treat for me. So my mom's family is from Punene. She grew up in Camp 13 on Maui, in the plantation camps. And my dad's family is from Hana, Maui. So I tell you a little bit about us, not because it's remarkable, but because it's not remarkable. There's nothing really special about our family, and there's nothing in our experience that might have led someone to believe that we could have achieved much. My sister's super smart, and so is my other sister who is an executive at City Mall. And I just got lucky to land the places that I got. But I tell you that story because it's not remarkable, and because it really is, I think, the story of many of your own students and our own keiki, and it's a way to say that you don't always know where kids will go. And we want very much at Kamehameha and here to give everyone those opportunities that we got. So we as kids got super lucky. You know, we were raised by a mom. You know, folks got divorced when I was really young, and my dad moved out when I was in 2nd grade. But we were raised by a mom who cared a great deal about us and who cared a great deal about education. I was 17, 18 years old before I figured out that college was an optional thing that some people did and some people didn't do. My mom always made it out like it was important and it was necessary, and you were going to do it as if you had to do it. So I did it, but not everybody comes from that circumstance. So we know how lucky we are. And we've tried our best in our lives to give back to some of those organizations that helped us along the way. So I prepared remarks because my sister said, make sure you prepare something. So I did. I've already gone off script. Trying to figure out if there is a script. So I know Josh Green is coming. And I know you also have really important workshops to get to. So I'm not quite sure how long I'm supposed to talk. But, okay, Anne said she'll stop me. So, and I believe that. So I'll talk a little bit about commitment. So I joined the board almost 6 years ago now. And when I got the phone call that says I was going to be a finalist to be a trustee, the first person I called was my sister Pua, and I said, hey, you know what, I could be a finalist for Kumena trustee, and her response was, Ferga. How do you do that, bro? I thought you had to be smart. Till today, she kind of quite believed that I have that kid. But, you know, I think for us, this opportunity for me and for Pua, this opportunity represents such a chance to make a difference and to give back. And so she's been super supportive of me and the work we're trying to do. So about 5 years ago, we had a chance to redo Kumena's strategic plan. And it's really the document that helps drive the organization forward into the future. And like most large organizations, it's important from time to time to visit your mission and your vision and what you're trying to accomplish. And so what we tried to do 5 years ago is answer 2 fundamental questions. Really just 2 fundamental questions. The first being, who do we serve? Who are we here to serve? We get hints of that from Hawaii's will, because she said he will start a school and there would be preference to the Hawaiians. But the world is a much more complex place today than it was 130 years ago. And so it's important for us from time to time to revisit that. And so the real question we ask ourselves as a board, we sat around the room for many days, is okay, who are we here to serve? Are we here to serve the 7,000 lucky kids that win the lottery and apply and get into Kamehameha schools? Or are we here to serve every Native Hawaiian, children, every Native Hawaiian child in the state and beyond? And there are big implications to that question. But at the end of the day, we concluded that winning the lottery and getting into Kamehameha is not what makes you a beneficiary of Hawaii's wealth. What makes you a beneficiary is the fact that you come from our Aina and you have the koko and you have a heart for Hawaii. And so we said at that time, okay, every Native Hawaiian children, that's who we serve, every Native Hawaiian child. The second question we had to answer was, okay, what is success for Kamehameha? What does it mean to be successful? So that at the end of the day, when we're POW, we can say, yes, we did it, or no, we did not do it. And so the answer to that question for us was post-secondary success. So what does that mean? We know that not every child is going to go on to college or community college or university, but we know that to earn a living wage in this place, to live here in a sustainable way, to be able to raise your family, you're going to need more than a high school education in most cases. The trend is clear, and all the documentation, all the data suggests you need more. So for some people, that might be a trade school, that might be apprenticeship, that might be working in the trades. For some, it might be internships or other kinds of training in high school. For some, it'll mean university. But if you think about what it takes to be successful, it's pretty clear. Charles Reed Bishop could not have achieved all the things he achieved starting a bank and serving in state government with a 7th grade education. That's not achievable today. That's simply not possible. And so our success factor is post-secondary completion. Now, we did not want to wait 18 years to figure out whether we were successful or not. So along the way, we made these interim steps, and we said, here are markers that basically will help tell us whether we're making the right moves or not. And so we created the kinds of milestones for us, which is very similar to what all of you use to determine whether or not we're succeeding. And it's not perfect. Nothing in this work is. It's not perfect. But it gives us good indications that we're making the right kind of moves and making the right kind of progress. So there are big implications to answering those two questions in that way. Serving every Hawaiian child means we cannot just have our resources devoted to our schools. So 3 campuses and 29 preschools, and we have all these kids that come and get to our Kamehameha school close, and we love them and we care for them and we try to do the best we can on our campuses. But obviously that's a very tiny percentage of the Native Hawaiian population. The vast majority of those kids are here in the DOE. The vast majority. So if we're serious about that, if we're honest about that, and if we're authentic about that, then we got to put our money where our mouth is. We got to put our resources where they're going to make the most difference. And so we have tried over the last 5 years to change and shift our organization to be outward facing, to be part of your community, to be part of every community in Hawaii, so that we can be as real about that goal as we can be. So I can tell you that today, our endowment is worth roughly $12.1 billion, and we spend about $450 or $500 million a year, every year on education. About half of that go to our campuses, and the other half go into community. Goes into programs and services and education support in all of our communities. And I can tell you, I'm a trend guy. I like to look at where we've been, where we are, so I can figure out where we're going. And I can tell you we're trying to hold fast the line on our on-campus spending so that over time, we will be spending, I guarantee we'll be spending more in our communities than we spend on our campuses. And it makes sense because that's where all of our kids are. So it's working. I can tell you that when we get our annual reports, when we get our quarterly reports, when we look at how we are doing, we get books and papers, and I have data. So I'll tell you this other story. So I told Jack Wong, our CEO, that I was coming here to speak, and Jack Wong said, "Hey, what you gonna say, bro? Like everybody's nervous about what I'm gonna say. I don't know why. If I wasn't so self-assured, I'd have a complex." So he said, "You need a briefing." I said, "I don't need a briefing." He said, "No, you need a briefing." So he gave me this, which is pages and pages of this. So I'm supposed to, I don't know, put this on the screen or something. It said, you know, pass it around. But what we get, I'll tell you this, what we get when we get reports on how we're doing, whether it's quarterly or annually, we have two columns of information, how we're doing in our schools and how we're doing in community. We look at your data. We look at how your students are doing. We look at how complex areas are doing. And that's how we measure our success, because that's what we said. And we're honest and we're true, trying to be super authentic about that. And because of that, I can tell you that we are so proud of some of the progress that you're making. Unbelievable progress in the areas of graduation rates. I know we've been watching that for some time, but from going from like 55% to 70, 75% in Y9 Nanahuli, that's remarkable work. Remarkable work. And so we know that it's kind of working. But here's the key. We don't take credit. We don't care whether it's our money or someone else's money. We know that the work is done here by you guys. You guys get the credit because you're doing the work. So you got unbelievable graduation rates. You have vastly improved third grade reading scores. And you, on all of our scorecards, the Waianae campus area is making great progress. So we're super excited about that. I mostly want you to know that when we spend time in our boardroom thinking about what we should be doing, we're thinking about you as much as we're thinking about our own campuses, if not more. When you say that we're going to serve every Native Hawaiian, here's the other thing you realize. We don't have enough money. Right? So I get a lot of requests for money from a lot of different kinds of people. And people think like $12 billion is a vast well of funds that you can just continuously dip into without worrying about running out. And it's simply not true. So when I talk to kids up at our campus, I tell them, okay, do this small little math lesson with me. So you take $12 billion and you divide that by about 150,000 kids that are Native Hawaiian between a certain age range. Then you divide that number by forever. And then you can determine how much money you can spend today. And because we are here in perpetuity and we have to think about not just your kids today, but their children and their children's children, and we have to be here forever, we have to be prudent about the money we spend. We measure time in 150-year increments, and so it's really concerning to me how we spend our money. My sister will tell you, I'm kind of cheap. I'm the youngest of three, and the only boy in kind of a Japanese family, which meant I did nothing in my house, and I paid for nothing in my house. We would go shopping for my mom's birthday present, and Carol would say, okay, it's $30, how much money you brought? I said, I never bring money. I never bring money. And it's worked for like 54 years, so it's worked really good. So we have to be prudent about that kind of stuff because we have to be here for a long time. What wakes me up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat is the idea that 50 years from now, a trustee is going to be sitting in a boardroom saying that freaking Wilhelm, he used all of our money. Now we're going to do what we want. So that's what that worries me, right? So when we say everyone, we mean it. We mean it, and we're watching, and we're helping. We're trying to help. So Calais and all of the resources that we invest in out here in the Nanakuli area, in our resource centers, in programs, in nonprofits like the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, in this school and other schools like it, in our charter schools, all of that is because we're serious about trying to serve and improve the educational outcome for every Native Hawaiian.
Post-secondary success. When we say post-secondary success,
we don't say college attendance, but we don't use enrollment as the measure. We use completion because we know that 90% of our kids enroll in college when they leave our campuses, and about 60% complete college after 5-6 years. So the drop-off is tremendous, and the loss for us and our community is even more so. So we invest in completion, and our interest is completion. So we say stuff like that. One of the great benefits you have as trustee is you get to make pronouncements, and you don't need to worry about how you do it. So you say, you know what, we're going to measure success. And all of our administration go running around like crazy people and say, no more such thing, I don't know how to do that. And we're still trying to figure it out, to be honest with you, but we now have better metrics about how our kids progress into and through college, into and through training programs, and come out on the other side. We have a lot of work to do, but we're trying to invest in innovative programs like scholarships that target second-year college students, not first year, because many kids can get into college and they can survive that first year on adrenaline alone. They'll find a way to get that money and invest it, and they'll go to college or go to university, but that second year is hard, really, really hard. They miss home, the schoolwork is a little different than they thought, the money's tight, and they don't make it through that second year and they come home. So we have programs that specifically target second year, and what we're finding is if we can get them through that second year hump, their success rate is much greater. And so we're making investments and trying to be innovative in that way. Mostly, when we say we're post-secondary success, we're talking about creating leaders for the next generation, which is, I think, what we're in the business of doing. To make Kamehameha sustainable into the forever future,
we have to do different organization because our population is growing like this. And even the best of efforts on the side of our investments,
the income that we try to produce in our land, our investments go like that. And so the gap between the money we can make and the people we're trying to serve grows larger every day. And we're very conscious of that. So how are we going to solve that problem? The simple solution, the simple answer for us is we got to be more Hawaiian leaders. We need more leaders in more places in Hawaii with a Hawaiian heart, because they will help us take care of our people in ways that we cannot conceive of today. So we're trying very hard to create Hawaiian leaders. I'm trying to put Native Hawaiians in every corner of all this, in every leadership position I can. Because I know that if we have Hawaiian leaders with Hawaiian hearts in our institutions, we will be successful as a people. So Annie's standing up, which is like, hey Lance, shut up. So right on, that's right on. I super appreciate that. I don't see Josh Green, but you're going instead. Right on. Sorry. I'm going to put on his scrubs first.
okay. Sorry. That's the kind of stuff my sister's worried about.
Okay. So can I just say that I'm so privileged to be here with all of you, and I thank you so much for all the work that you're doing to help us achieve our goals and ambitions. And if there's any way that we can be of service, I know I speak for all the trustees when I say please let us know how we can be of service. We want nothing more.
This is your schools and your students. Mahalo, aloha, iho.
You heard what he said, right? And you know why Jack Long said to look at your data? Because the first time he met me, he said, how can I help you? I said, I need $6 million to open up preschools in all of my campuses. Yeah, but I tell you what he was really good about. Gave us money to start a proof of concept. No, go that way. I want to take my picture. So the light is shining on these, so cannot. So you gotta go that way, sorry. But we had technical issues of the light on my face. So he said, can you move it up? You go, okay, all right, so we're gonna stand together and the deputy will take my picture for my retirement party. Okay. No, and so we started our preschools. We have funded to our preschools as a proof of concept. And what we found, because they're in third grade now, those students that were in preschool are reading at a 70% efficiency rate as compared to others who have not had the opportunity at 35%. And this is the kind of support we appreciate from Kamehameha Schools, as well as the time I talked to Kamoela, and I said, so how much money you invest in scholarships? He's like, 15 million. I said, how many of them finished the first year in one? He said, maybe 50%. Yeah? So I said, can you give me the other 50%? So that we can give every one of our kids a scholarship that's deserving for post-secondary. And you know what? That's the kind of support we're starting to see. So really, we want to give you a hand. And thank you, Mahalo, for all that you do for all of us. Thank you. Okay, where's Terry? Terry's going to bring in the Waianae High School Talofa Club.
Please give them a warm welcome.
Sarge, get over here. Hey Google, how long does it take a dog to digest food?
6 to 8 hours.
Set an alarm for 7 hours from now.
Never mind the light already. We're good. I just need to be sure that we have the right staging for our keynote speaker later, but you know. All right. Wasn't that awesome? Yeah. That was so great. The political from Warner High School just brings so much energy, and we remember why we're here as educators on the West Side, and why we stay, and why we continue to work with our hearts for these children. I do want to recognize Representative Stacy Van Eli. She's able to join us, and she is. Thank you so much for all your support. And I thought I saw Dr. Kalihua Krug, who was sitting there. So just know he is here too. Let's give him a round of applause. And then I'm going to have Terry come up. Well, I'm giving prizes. All right, we're going to give some prizes out. Leslie Gu. Leslie was my student at Laia High School. This is what makes you proud of a teacher. That she became a teacher. Thank you. So this is May Oshiro, Warner High School. Okay, this is for a while, you know. Okay, walk fast, people. Janice Mori. This is Cindy from Makini. Oh my goodness, this is a $25 Target gift card and t-shirt. So it wasn't just a t-shirt, okay? Okay. Congratulations. And the next one goes to Marianne Mallory. Waianae High School. Oh no, Waianae L. Let me put my glasses on. Okay, this is for Glory from Maili. Okay, what should we do? Should we hold it or give it away? No, I'm only kidding. All right. She might be in the library, but I told you, tell them they have to be here or they're not going to win. And Ka'ai. Why not? Is Anne here? And this is for Diane. Waianae L. Sibley. Okay, wait now. That's yours. Thank you, Anne. Where's Diane? Here you come. All right. One more. This is for Leona de los Santos from Lalaklihan Intermediate. Okay, Mona, this is a special bag from Taro brand with their famous pancake mix inside and a book. A book. I have to give books away, so you got a book in there, okay? You got it. All right, thank you. And we have one for, Michelle Medina, Waianae Elementary. Are you here? Physician in Hawaii's rural emergency departments and clinics while serving in public office. In 2009, he was named Hawaii Physician of the Year. He was elected to the Hawaii State House of Representatives in 2004 and served 2 terms before being elected to the Hawaii State Senate in 2008, where he previously chaired the Committee on Health and served as the majority leader. He championed the initiative raising the legal age to obtain tobacco products and electronic cigarettes from 18 to 21, making Hawaii the first state to do so. He was elected our Lieutenant Governor in 2018. As the Lieutenant Governor, he has been tasked by the Governor with addressing the chronic homeless crisis in Hawaii, calling on him to use his background as a physician to address the complex issues such as mental illness and addiction, which affects the homeless at high rates in Hawaii, and especially in our community. Lieutenant Governor Green has a strong compassion for those who are in need and has been an advocate for mental health and social-emotional services for our children in Hawaii. He is here today to address these issues, as well as to share his thoughts on all the work of the Nanakuli Waianae schools in becoming trauma-informed and skilled in the respective practices that meet the needs of our haumana. As someone said of him, the hopes, challenges, and values of the families he cares for continue to inspire him to do more to make life better for the people of Hawaii as our Lieutenant Governor. Let us give him a warm welcome to the Waianae side.
Aloha, everybody. First, let's give a round of applause for Superintendent Mahi. She is a fabulous I'm happy to be here with you at the Nanakuli Waianae Complex Area Learning Summit. I'm happy because when we were going through the process the last year and asking to serve, people said, "Why do you spend so much time in Waianae?" To tell you the truth, it feels very familiar to me. I was going to build up to this, but my heart has always been in our rural parts of our state. When I came to Hawaii many years ago, I was recruited to be the doctor on the Big Island in Hilo. They said, "Doc, you're out in Pittsburgh. We know you have job opportunities out there. There's this beautiful city, this big city on the Big Island named Hilo. You should come and work here." So I said, "Okay, I'll look at it," and I was so honored to get chosen to come and work in the big city of Hilo. And when I landed in Hilo, they said, "We were going to have you work here in Hilo, but our doctor just quit in this wonderful place called Ka'u. You're going to love it there. You're going to fit right in." So they drove me to Ka'u and showed me this little place I would rent down on Black Sand Beach, and I became the doctor in metropolitan Ka'u. And began to have my adult life in a beautiful setting in Hawaii, where all of the 8,000 patients they asked me to serve and to provide health care for were essentially like us here in Waianae. Many of my patients, in fact almost all of my patients, were either Filipino or Hawaiian. And that was the really most extraordinary way for a guy who's a Jewish dude from Pittsburgh who's coming on an adventure to Hawaii to be welcomed into the community and to begin to see through that lens what it's really like to live in our communities, in rural areas where far too often we're forgotten when we need resources. Far too often the focus has been what's it like in Honolulu, or where there are lots and lots of people with different opportunities, whereas we in the neighbor islands and in the rural setting ask, how can we get more resources for our schools? How can we get more resources for our keiki? How do we find the ability to care for people when we are often away from the epicenter of decisions? So in those years in Ka'u, I began to wonder, what is life really like for people? And being on call myself for 4 years, talking to people day in and day out at nighttime, deep into their challenges, I saw we didn't have access to so many things. We didn't have access to drug treatment. We didn't have access to trauma services, which I'm going to speak about today. We didn't have access to many things that we need. And we wondered why. Why are we fighting to get services that other people may already have right in the center of town? And I thought, really, we ought to fight for that. So I ran for office as a doctor, going door to door. Probably had no chance, except for my opponent was a cocaine dealer, which was a very lucky break in the course of running for office, and got selected. And from that perspective, I began to see as a doctor and a legislator that every time we have champions like Anne and you, who are willing to fight for the resources we need away from the center of Honolulu, away from even some of the other centers of more dense population, though we tease because obviously Hilo is not a city, it's a town still, or Kona, or even, of course, the second city here. We have so few people compared to where other people get the other services they want right away that we have to come up with solutions on our own. So that's why I wanted to be an honored part of your talk today. To come, and it seems like we're here every other week, because our focus in my office is to work on ways to advocate for those who have good ideas but haven't had programs yet in place, that are fighting to put their own good ideas into place. So when we look at the homeless crisis, we want to build Kauhale here in Waianae, in Nanakuli. We're looking at Barbers Point. We're in the more rural areas like Ka'u and Waimanalo, because we know there's a lot of centers and shelters and solutions for people when they reach crisis, but they don't always come to us. And we're often left to rely on our own ingenuity and our own kids. One of the things that's been a focus for me this last few months is looking at the big picture and seeing that we kind of have an ecosystem of crisis amongst all of our families. There's been simply so many challenges that our kids face because we've always said that they struggle for resources, but we now know that it's hard to afford housing. That's a long, long understood reality about us in Hawaii. But also when you add the other things, we don't have enough access to mental health care, so people are in crisis at home. Maybe one of the parents of our students is struggling with depression or bipolar disease. The only good meal they may get is at school. The only role model that has got it together may be one of you excellent educators during the day. Though their parents absolutely love them, very likely they have between them 3 jobs for the 2 people, maybe even 4 jobs just to afford their rent. They might not be there at night. So many of the critical services that we're going to get for our children are going to be at the schools. In the public school system, we will be offering ways to help people grow psychologically. We have to teach them through the processes that you guys have been championing on trauma-informed care. We have to help those children develop ways so that they can reach their basic potential. When the parents will do all that they can because they love their children to death, they may just not have the extra capacity or the extra energy to get them what they need in so many areas. We know that most of the best meals children get now are at school, and it's why we worry so much when school is out, because our nutritional standards for our keiki drop. Did you know that 1 in 5 of our keiki in the state go hungry every night? They go to bed hungry. 1 in 5. It's 1 in 8 of all of our citizens, and that's just too much to bear. And then finding a doctor. Most often, it's very difficult to find a primary care doctor or a specialist if our kids need behavioral health care, if they need support services, if they just need their regular care. It's why we have to fight to put in school-based clinics again into our schools, so that once again the schools can be one of the centers of activity for our most precious asset, our children. So what I see in you, and I really want to say thank you. Thank you for being educators, because I know it's not the highest pay, and I know it's not the most glamorous job, but in many ways it's the absolute most important job, because you're not just their educator. You may very well be their auntie or uncle, especially when we're in the rural areas. You could be their psychologist. You could be their law enforcement personnel, helping to make sure that when there's gang violence or bullying, that they have someone to basically have hope, that they're going to be treated with kindness and love and respect. When I was in Ka'u, this is how short we were on police officers, to give you an idea. I'd be living down on the Black Sand Beach, and some of my friends would say, "Oh, did you just hear on the radio that the police had to go all the way to Ocean View to deal with someone who was involved in a domestic violence case?" Both of the police cars would go there, and then people would sell drugs on the beach. And it was a fake call, but we had no other service in the entire 1,000 square miles. And I know that that's the case in the rural areas too. It's not just, of course, law enforcement, it's all services. When we have one focused challenge, many, many, many thousands of other people can't get services. So that's why I rely on the schools. I think that this is the center of all of the good things that we can do. So when Anne came to me and she said, we're doing something special. We're doing something special because kids need a better way to deal with trauma, I wanted to be right on board. Now, after being the doctor in Ka'u as a family doctor, I moved over to the emergency department. And it was in that setting where I saw all the really scary things that happened to us in community. I saw 2 one-year-old babies, both victims of serious trauma from neglect over the course of a 6-week period. And I wondered to myself, why? And what the circumstance really was, once we looked at it, was just very young parents hadn't yet established a way to take care of their child. And it was in both cases a grandparent, tutus basically, taking care of those children and doing the best they could. And when a toddler wandered out of the house and was run over by a car, it was because we just didn't have enough family and friends and education around to sustain that whole ohana. And then the same thing happened to another child that fell from a balcony because the young parents had been affected by methamphetamine. And I knew that we didn't have the access to treatment for them. We didn't have full access to get them all the services they themselves who needed at schools. They were still not even out of high school yet, needed to avail themselves of. And that's when I knew that we had to begin to really look to our public school system to embed those services, to embed new processes, like a trauma-based process, because how many of us are dealing with trauma? Whether it's one of our nephews or nieces that goes and suddenly kind of falls out of the normal way of thinking, maybe gets into drugs, maybe has mental illness. And it's not a rare example that this happens. And then depression, and then addiction. And if we don't have services, whether it's here in the rural areas, or even actually in the city, we lose them. We lose them to suicide, where our rate is twice higher than the national average. And I can say this, that it's not just those of us who are struggling, maybe with a little extra poverty, maybe extra difficulty getting services. My own family lost a cousin to suicide last October. So I know exactly what can happen to any family across our country, but it's even worse and even more real for us here in Hawaii because so many of our young people contemplate that. So it's you who I look to. It's you as education leaders with a fantastic person leading the way. I don't know how many more years we get out of Ann, but no matter what, we have to make sure that we all come together and lead on these issues because, to tell you the truth, there's no one else coming to the rescue. We have to look into our communities, put together the strongest possible programs on health, on social service, on education, of course, in our school system. It's where most of our students are going to get all of their services up to age 18. Now, it can't all be about trauma, of course. We have to look at other challenges in our society. And one of my calls to action to you, if I can be so bold, is you are already leading large numbers of people. You're already the closest individuals to our families in the community. I thought it was doctors who would know the 2,000 patients that they had in their community, and it turns out after I've spent time in this job, that it's actually teachers and teachers' assistants and people who are with many hundreds of students every day, because you will know what the challenge is with their parents, what their auntie's challenge is, what their uncle's challenge is. You'll know how to bring down the trauma so that that kid doesn't have to get suspended. An incredible success that you've already had in your district, better than anywhere else in the state, by putting together
And come up to decrease trauma and decrease conflict.
we keep kids in school. Keep kids in school, they have better chances at jobs. Better chances at jobs, they might be able to afford a home. These are really signature successes that you've put together, and I want you to lead the way so that when other problems come to us, whether it's the homeless challenge, and we try to build a small kahale here in the community, whether it's Waianae or Nakapuli or wherever,
All we get help for deep trouble, but the kids today in our classrooms, they're already on the street. And the kids in our classrooms that don't really succeed definitely struggle and drift in that form of crisis over the coming years.
so you guys are really the tip of the spear. I just wanted to say thank you so much for welcoming me, for letting me be your partner in these challenges. Please do all that you can to embrace these new opportunities. Our team is looking at very great things like environmental technology coming out of our schools, new disciplines that should bring lots of money, lots of jobs to our state, new programs, we're calling it the Ohana Initiative, to make sure houses are very, very affordable, very low rate loans. So if we want to be teachers or nurses or what have you, we don't have to struggle to have a house of our own. These are the kind of things we're going to be fighting for, but I just wanted to say we're celebrating you today. We're celebrating the incredible things that you guys are doing here in our auditorium for all the kids out there. I love you guys. Thank you for your trauma-informed approach. Thank you for being teachers to the best of the state we have all.
support, yeah, is really something we appreciate. And just to let you know that we are working on initiatives that will help to support the continued work around our Whole Child Initiative, around multi-tiered systems of support, around our academic, authentic teaching and learning. And if I can just say one more thing about what we're doing here. As we know, over the last several years, we did Tier 1, right? Foundational, multi-tiered systems of support, social-emotional learning, trauma-informed care. That was Tier 1 for our response to intervention for behavior. So our Tier 1 for our response to intervention for academics is having every child having access to high-quality, engaging teaching for their learning through the 5 E's. Okay? And the 5 E's is what you're all doing now. And what we're starting to see is that through your reflections, and I've been able to read them, as your principal shared them with me, we see that our children are engaged, they're smiling, and they're having fun. They're practicing skills in communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and compassion. And that's all through the opportunities you give them as teachers in our classroom, practicing both sides, touching their heart through the leading with compassion, and teaching their mind through getting them ready for the 21st century and their future. So as we move out today, we know that there are 5 promises that the superintendent put out. And of course, we cannot remember the 5 promises. If I call the vice principals up, I'm giving the principals a break, and everybody's looking down now, right? What are the 5 promises that we put out there? Okay, I'm only doing this because my boss is here, okay? But we remember through things like mnemonics, right? So I have to remember like that too, because unless we make a connection in our brain to something, we're not going to remember. So I put it down like he say, she say, he say, we say. So it's Hawaii, equity, S, school design, excellence, and innovation. And these are all the things that I'm starting to see come out from the West Side in all of your classrooms. Your creativity, your critical thinking, you're leading your students to things that engage them and embrace them totally is what's going to make the West Side proud of all of their children and this community. When I go out and I tell people that I am the superintendent of Nanakuli Waianae, they say this, hey, we hear that there's great stuff happening out on the West Side. And I smile and I tell them, damn right, damn right. Have a great day today, and we really appreciate everything you do. Oh wait, sorry, you can clap for me, it's okay. But Terry told me to stop. Actually, Deputy, would you like to say 1 minute of something? This is an opportunity for me to hear and let her praise me. How's that? Yeah. Okay, this is our Deputy Superintendent, Phyllis Nimbasam.
So you know who's really the boss, right? She's the boss of all of us. Let's not get that wrong. But the one thing I do want to say is thank you to Anne, because I've known her since VP days. We were vice principals together and made Christmas cookies for our staff. And one of every Christmas, by hand, we're not bakers, but we did our best. And knowing that she is retiring, I celebrate that because I know that she greatly deserves it. But I also want to say how much I appreciate her passion for kids across wherever she served, whether it was in Kailua, and McKinley, the Makili Complex, Radford, every place we go, the kids always mattered. And so she is so passionate about her leadership and what she wants to do for her staff and for her kids, and I just will miss that on our leadership team. So thank you so much for that. I also want to make a correction because E is empowerment. Yeah, and I'm really surprised because of all the Kaz's, the one person that consistently over and over again advocates for empowerment at the school and the complex level is Kaz Mahi, and she got that one wrong.
Thank you so much. I really like being corrected. I really do. And I swear it was. You might be wrong. They printed it wrong, I think, in the book. Anyway, for us, it is. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll turn it over to Terry.
Okay, just a few announcements before we start the day. EA's Chad Nye from HGEA will be in the cafeteria during lunchtime in case you have any questions, and he'll also be sharing information with you. And then now I'd like to introduce HSTA Leeward Chapter's UNICEF directors. We have Jonathan Leibowitz and Justin Jansen. So thanks to HSTA and these two gentlemen, teachers and let me add this first. We also have President Corey Rosenlee here. Is he still in the room? Oh, maybe not. Maybe he went to his session. Anyway, we added a brand new session that Corey is going to be doing at the for each of the hour sessions. Teachers, you really want to go check this session out. This is about HSTA's plan to end the teacher shortage here in the Nanakuli Waianae complex area. And it's really exciting. So I encourage you to stop by and hear the plan, as well as share your ideas of how we can retain teachers here on the coast for our students. Those of you who do attend, you will have a paper to sign your name and school, and you'll be entered into a drawing for either an Amazon Fire tablet or an iPad. Okay? And then, last but not least, after each session, all of you who are attending today, please complete the exit ticket. Each time you complete the exit ticket, up to 4 times for the whole day, you will be entered into a prize for either a $50 gift certificate from Waianae Store or an Apple Watch. Okay? And those of you in double sessions, don't worry, we'll enter your name twice so that you're not shortchanged. Okay? Have a great day, everybody.